Are you ready for a story? This story is called The Cave People of the Kerawari, a Disappearing Culture. It's about a group of real people who live in a country called Papua New Guinea. Deep in the jungle of the Kerawari region of Papua New Guinea, high in the hills of the Erafundi and Kerawari rivers, live an amazing people called the Miakumbut. The Miakumbut are nomadic. This means they do not live in one place all the time. Instead, they move from place to place, carrying everything they own with them. They live the way that their people have lived for thousands of years, far from the modern world and with very little help from outsiders. There are barely 50 Miakumbut men, women and children. They live in an area of jungle in the mountains that is about 10 miles wide and 10 miles long. They live in this area, moving between different caves, rock shelters, and simple man-made shelters. Many years ago, there were other groups who also lived in the caves in the Kerawari, but they all left the caves in the mountains and went to live in villages. The Miakumbut are the only people still living in these caves. There are over 300 caves and rock shelters in the Kerawari. Many of them belong to the Miakumbut. It is a tradition for each cave to have a name and an owner. The caves are passed down from father to son. The Miakumbut often tell stories and legends about the caves, and many of the caves have paintings on the walls that tell about the Miakumbut people. For generations, the Miakumbut have made handprints on the walls of the caves. They have made the handprints using paint made from clay. Some of the handprints are new and some are very old. Some may be up to 20,000 years old. There are handprints like these in ancient caves in other parts of the world too. The Miakumbut move quickly with their bare feet over stones and through the jungle vines. They know the land very well. This is important because they must find food in the jungle. They gather wild fruits and other plants. They plant some foods like bananas and pumpkins and pick them up when they pass the same place again. The men use handcrafted spears, knives and bows and arrows to hunt for the birds, wild pigs, fish and other animals. The Miakumbut's main food is called sago. It is a starch from the inside of the sago palm tree. Getting the sago starch out of the tree is very hard work, and the community must cooperate to do it. Later, they make pancakes with the sago and cook the pancakes over a fire. The Miakumbut build fires by rubbing a strip of bamboo against a stick. Miakumbut men wear a loincloth. Traditionally, the loincloths are made with leaves. The women wear grass skirts. Sometimes, though, the Miakumbut wear modern cloth skirts, t-shirts and shorts that they receive through trade or donations. The Miakumbut also decorate their faces and bodies. They use leaves to create headdresses and sometimes also fur, feathers or flowers. They wear necklaces made of shells. Painting their faces and bodies is the Miakumbut way of getting dressed up. The Miakumbut people are proud of their culture and their traditions. Holding on to their land and their old way of life is important to the Miakumbut, but they face many difficulties. The Miakumbut are very far from towns and cities, so they must travel far over the mountains or down the river to get to the nearest clinics. Sometimes healthy people must carry sick people on their backs. There are also companies that want to cut down the jungle trees for wood and to mine the land for metals. Nancy Sullivan, an American anthropologist, and a team of Papua New Guinean researchers are working with the Miakumbut to write down the location and history of the Miakumbut caves and to photograph the paintings. They hope this will bring attention to the Mia Kumbut culture and that this will make the government want to preserve the caves and the land. Sullivan's team is also working on getting basic help for the Mia Kumbut, such as doctor's visits and building materials. The Mia Kumbut worry about their future. Many of them believe that leaving their caves to settle in villages and grow gardens may be the best way forward, even though that would mean giving up some of their traditions. With the help of Nancy Sullivan's team, the Mia Kumbut started a new village called Tembakapa. They still move from place to place, but not as much as before. They hope their government will now help them build homes, a health clinic and a school. As long as the Mia Kumbut survive, their culture and their history will survive too.